Hi, everybody. Thank you ever so much for coming in, and thank you, Anton, for putting on this webinar and giving us an opportunity to show you how you can master Majestic. So we're going to go through and talk about some of the ways you can get really deep into using Majestic's data to help you with link building, to help you with mastering link building as part of your SEO strategy. So just for those that don't know about Majestic, we're one of the largest private search engines in the world. We call ourselves a search engine or marketing specialist search engine, but of course everyone knows us for our links and the amount of links that we have about the internet. To give you an idea of how large we are though, on an average day, Twitter says that there's around about 500 million, half a billion tweets per day on average. And in the same average day, we crawl something like 2 billion, that's 2,000 million new URLs, and we see around about 7 billion. So if you want to get an idea of scale, that's a pretty good idea. There's some people typing in Russian, so if you're going to type in Russian, Anton, you're going to have to translate for me because I can't deal with the Russian. If you type any questions at the end in Russian, then hopefully Anton can translate them for me. But I'm afraid the presentation's in English. Majestic, of course, is in Russian. The site is in Russian. So if you get to the site and find that it's all in English and you'd rather it Russian, there's a little flag in the top right-hand corner of Majestic, and you can always turn it to Russian. So anyway, we're crawling around about 2 billion URLs a day and seeing 7 billion. Questions coming in already. That's interesting. I'll work on the questions at the end if that's okay, because otherwise I'm going to get through all the material that I've got to go, and I'll look at the questions in the end. I'll speak a bit louder though as well. Right, I'm going to go through a methodology that I use for using Majestic, and I'm going through a specific set of rules that I go through for using Majestic, particularly when I used to work in an agency. I'm afraid this particular slide has kind of got a little bit wrecked in upload, but it's going through a prospecting phase, a pitch phase, an audit phase. Then if you've got a penguin problem, going through that, and then going through a review and reporting phase, or a prospecting phase for getting new links, and then a review and reporting phase. And I'm going to show you how to use these tools in Majestic to go through this process. But first I want to explain why links are so important. There's a lot more information in a link than you might think. If you look at a link on a page, you can see something about the content in that link, the relevance, the reach, the intent. You can see whether it's an influential page that's linking, whether it's timely, whether it's evergreen content or immediate content. You can see something about the power, the passion of the wording in those links. There are a lot of things that pass through a link other than just link juice or PageRank. So links are important, and they're not going to go away anytime soon. They're the only way that you get around the internet. So they're very, very important, and that's really why Google sees them as so important. The second thing I want to talk about is to ask how they do that in a Zeta age. So how do search engines work? And just look at one bit of the search engines that you may not have thought about much. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a cold, so I apologize. I've got a glass of water here. So as SEOs, we tend to look at how Google might collect data, how a search engine collects data. We also look quite a bit at how it indexes data, so how the search engine rankings appear on the screen. And some of us also spend some time trying to get into the head of the user and seeing how a search engine will match the user query with the actual search results. But as SEOs, we don't really think about the important part of the search engine grouping algorithm. And it's a very important part for a search engine for them to be able to respond and return information very, very quickly. And if we do understand more about it, then we get to learn a little bit more about how search engines work. And this is one of the things that Majestic has the advantage of doing, is seeing how important this grouping is for building a search engine. So let me explain. If you were going into a library, if you were trying to find the mass of a moon, then you would go into a library if you didn't have the internet. And you could go to the first book in the library and start looking up and seeing whether it's got information about the mass. Or you could go to the card indexing system and find the section in the library that's about astrophysics or about planets, and use that to narrow your search very, very quickly. And that's, of course, what you would do. So grouping things first makes finding things much, much simpler and much, much faster. Turn off my camera. Hopefully, you can see the whole of the PowerPoint image. So groups make search or finding things very much quicker if you can group things first. Whether you're finding a fact like the mass of the moon, or if you're trying to find a friend, for example, then you would ask your friends if they know where your friend is. If you're trying to find a customer, you ask the other customers or your suppliers. Anything that you're looking for, we as human beings tend to firstly narrow down our search before we go and find the answer. And search engines try and do the same thing as well. And there's some quite good theory as to why categorizing things into topics before you create your search engine is effective in search. It prevents spam for a start. You can't suddenly create a web page out of nowhere that's going to be relevant if all of the other pages on the website are about a completely different topic. So it does prevent spam. And there are also a couple of good papers, and there's some links here for 2 papers that you might want to go and have a look at if you're particularly studious and you want to go and see some research papers on why categorizing is important. But we also know that search engines, of course, categorize, and they can categorize in all sorts of different ways. So they categorize by data type, for example. So Google in Russia has different results to Google in the UK, has different results to Google in the US. They also have a whole separate data structure of images, or videos, of local listings, of maps, travel. All of these are different data types, and a search engine finds it much, much easier to hold these different data types in separate indexes because they are all organized indexes instead of sets of unstructured data. So if I show you how that would work, if you type in pizza in, I think this is in the US, and you type in pizza, Google decides that you're probably getting into the head of user. They categorize that you're probably typing in Pizza Hut, even though you may not be. So they firstly categorize what they think the user is thinking. Then they show a subset, a category of websites that are all from Pizza Hut. Then they show a category of pages, well, a category of a map of locations of Pizza Hut. And then they show reviews of Pizza Hut. And then they show the Wikipedia page of Pizza Hut. So they're categorizing by data straight out of the box at Google. But as SEOs, that's not the most useful thing. It's much more useful as SEOs for us to understand how a search engine might group things by topic. If we were able to group things by topic, we would be better able to match what a search engine does and better able to get to the top of the search results ultimately. So the most famous way of grouping things by topic that we know of was really Yahoo Directory, which is now defunct. But Yahoo Directory at one time had a list of every website on the internet, believe it or not. And they were manually reviewed, and they had a look at every website and put it in a category. And so they grouped everything by topic, by website. Unfortunately, this isn't scalable because it's only by website, not by web page. And there's just too many pages on the web, and now there's too many websites on the web. So whilst there's still other systems like Yale, Best of the Web that do this, it's not scaling very well. So we think that Google have used a different approach. And what they've done is they've understood words that are similar to each other. And here's a whole load of words in English that are similar to each other. And these words are, what Google has done is spent a lot of time trying to associate these words with topics and with categories so they can get a pretty good understanding of what it is that you're looking for within a few words. And I think they spend a lot of time trying to get topics based on words on page. It turns out that that's very, very difficult to do and very difficult to emulate. So we've tried to take a different approach, and we've come up with another way of categorizing the web, which I think is very, very powerful. and it seems to work, and it seems to correlate very well with the topics and categorization that Google comes up with. So I'll show you a little bit about that. But we categorize the web by seeing that content tends to connect in groups. If you're a website in the aeroplane industry, then the chances are you're going to link to other pages about the aeroplane industry. And keywords also tend to gravitate into groups. So let me show you how that works out. So links tend to inherit characteristics. So this is the British royal family from 1890 or so to the present day. And at the top of the family tree, we've got Queen Victoria, and she's had children, they've had children, and some of their characteristics pass on from generation to generation. So characteristics passed down, are inherited from father to son and from mother to daughter, just in the same way that links inherit characteristics as well. So, because Queen Victoria was the Queen of England in 1890, we know that this lady in the middle is going to be the Queen of England. And then this little baby here, even though this baby doesn't know who he is yet, we know what job he's going to have, how rich he's likely to be, the sort of education he's going to have, possibly some of the diseases he may have, what titles he may have. We know so much more about that baby than even that baby does, just by understanding the links and the relationships in the family tree. And it's the same with the internet as well. So if we have people, we can then see how influential people are as well. So here is, for example, the Twitter handles of Lady Gaga with 40 million followers, and Barack Obama with 36 million followers. But if we look at how influential those people are, we see that one is, we've got some scores here, they're in a black score, but we've got scores out of 100 of how influential each one is, 174 out of 100, 171 out of 100, as to how influential they are. And we can then, sorry, let me just explain that. So we can see that Barack Obama is slightly more influential than Lady Gaga. But we can go a lot further than that and find out the context in which they're influential. So, for example, the way that we group information is to have a look at web pages and have a look at the links from those pages. So in this diagram here, we've got pages on the left-hand side. And those 4 pages on the left-hand side, if we know that they're influential, then the chances are that this page in green, in the middle above the MAJESTIC Twitter handle, that page is more likely to be influential than the one in question marks, which is semantically further away from the sites that we know and trust. What's more, if we know that these pages in blue are about aeroplanes, for example, the chances are that this page in green is about aeroplanes is greater than the one with the question marks. So it doesn't matter whether we're looking at influence or whether we're looking at topics. The influence flows through links quite well. So if we take that back to search engines, these are the search engine results according to SEMrush, which I'm sure many of you will have heard of, for the US search results for the phrase credit cards. And if you have a look at the results for the phrase credit cards, and we put these into our topical trust flow analyzer, we see that all of these results have 2 things in common. They have commonality in the category of business, and they have commonality in the category of society. But they're much more influential in the category of business. And if we drill down, we see that actually they are specifically influential in the topic of business/financial services. So there's a direct grouping between the search results that are coming back from Google and the topics we associate with those pages. It's not always the case. This is a different example. This is for the search phrase majestic. Now, majestic can mean so many different things in English. So it can mean, obviously, majestic search engine. In the UK, there's a huge company called Majestic Wine, which is a wine warehouse, which are much bigger than us and much more popular for good reason. And then there's also majestic animals, majestic landscapes, and majestic bars and theatres and hotels all around the world. So There's a very low correlation with the phrase majestic and topics in this case, and it's the same on search engines as well. But again, if we go back to another phrase like the White House, we very, very quickly see that the associations come back, this time to society and history, or society and government. And all the search results that are coming back from Google, when we put them into our topic analyzer, are all from the same category. So there's a tight correlation between topics and categories. Okay. And when we overlay that onto Twitter, for example, so the Twitter profiles for Lady Gaga and Barack Obama, we now see that these Twitter profiles are about very, very different things. Lady Gaga is all about arts and music, whereas Barack Obama is all about society. Now, there are other approaches to authority. There's page authority and domain authority, which Moz uses, of course. The positive, I think, for that is that it's good correlation for SEO. Negative is that I think it's a less independent metric in many ways. Tools like Link Raven tools can use both metrics. Link risk tends to go deeper into analyzing those sites, and then tools like LinkDex can add a value layer and insight on top of our data as well. Okay, so that's really about how we set up Majestic. But now here's all the tools that we can use to start really getting the data out and start using it for SEO. And I'm going to start by thinking about SEO as an agency, even though this is going to be suitable for in-house SEO as well. But initially, if you're an agency, you're going to be prospecting for business. You're going to want to know which websites you want to approach. And so here's some very quick tools for being able to use Majestic to see whether a company is worth approaching for SEO. The first is a free plugin that we have, which is a Firefox or a Chrome plugin, which allows you to go and have a look at key statistics across the web for any URL that you're on. So if you plug that into, if you go to Firefox or Chrome extensions, download the Majestic plugin or extension in Google's terms, then you can just click on that star in the top right-hand corner in your browser, and it will bring up instant information about any web page that you're on. And you don't have to go to Majestic to get that data. So that's always very useful. It does give you some data for free, but if you tie your Majestic account to it, you get a lot more information as well. Also, if you're trying to analyze an industry, using our bulk backlink checker is a very quick way to see which sites in an industry are influential enough to do business with. So you might either want to find ones that are not as influential as they should be, or are more influential, and therefore you've got a chance of pitching for more money. So if you've got a whole load of websites within an industry in a list, you can just cut and paste them into our bulk backlink checker, and it will show you an instant map of all of those websites. So once you've decided who you're going to go for, then you've got to pitch for business for most of us in the agency world. So here's some tools that we have that will allow you to pitch quickly and effectively with Majestic. One of the most popular parts of Majestic is our backlinks history checker. So our backlinks history checker is free. You don't need an account, so you just need to, well, you don't need to have a paid account, you can log in for free. And what it does is it allows you to see the link acquisition rate for up to 5 websites over a 5-year period, or if you want it in a fresh index, over a 90-day period. So you can just put them together and start seeing how quickly they've been gaining links. This is particularly useful if you get somebody phoning you up saying, I would like to be #1 for magic keyword here. And then you go and have a look at the competitors and realize that they are so much bigger than the person that's phoning you up. And it's a very good way to quickly establish whether you can realistically rank for a particular phrase or not, or in a particular vertical or not, depending on the power of the company that you're pitching a business for. So the backlink history checker is a really popular tool. It's a nice little graphic that you can throw into pitches very, very quickly as well. Also, if you just go into Majestic and type in a website, then a lot of people miss what's below the fold. So what comes back inside Explorer at the top is a little bit of information about the website. But if you scroll down, you get some more charts and some more information about what's happening on that website. So even in the free version of the tool, you'll start seeing a breakdown of the top 10 anchor texts, the percentage of links that are in frames versus text links versus redirects, for example. So just scroll down the page a little bit and you'll find some other nice graphics so you can pull into a pitch phase for your business. And then if you do have an account, it's very easy to start comparing different tools as well. So we've relatively recently introduced a little button above the main search box saying compare. And that brings you to this screen where you can put up to 5 different websites next to each other, and you can quickly have a look at different things. So you can have a look at summary data, as this screen shows, which is the relative links of 2 websites and the relative trust flows and citation flows of 2 websites. Or you can have up to 5 sites in the backlink history checker or the topics checker, so you can see the different topics that these sites are influential in. It also allows you to quickly bring up our Clique Hunter tool, which I'll talk about a little bit later, and our Majestic Million tool to compare those sites side by side. So a very useful tool for giving comparative charts and to understand where your client or the person you're pitching business to has to get to show them that it's not going to be a walk in the park to try and get this information to get to the top of the search engine. Also, if you're going to pitch for anybody, I strongly recommend to any of you, if you haven't done it yet, set up tracking reports in Majestic if you have accounts for any company that you're either pitching to or that you've already got as a client. And the reason to do it when you're pitching is that you can start to build up a baseline of what happens over time. So you have an element of an anchor point of when you first started engaging with that client. I would actually recommend that you do it for your competitors as well, or their competitors as well. So you build up tracking reports. So tracking reports are very cheap in terms of what it costs to use of your account. It's hardly anything. But it means that every day, every time we update our fresh index, we'll store that information for you as to whether the trust flow is increasing, as to whether the number of links are increasing, to whether the AC rank is increasing, that sort of thing. So we're tracking that information over time, so that when you go back 3 or 4 months later after all that work that you've done, you can demonstrate that there's been an improvement, a qualitative improvement in hopefully the trust flow, but certainly the link counts as well. Okay, so you use this to create some pretty pictures and to get the customer hooked. And so quite often for people, as soon as you've got a new client or as soon as you take over as the in-house SEO, the first thing you have to do is audit a website. Now, for Majestic being a link tool, SEO is also at the audit phase about on-page SEO, and so most of the audit is technical on-site SEO. So we don't necessarily have a huge amount to add to that, and I would suggest that you use tools like Screaming Frog, Deep Crawl. Those kind of things are very good for analyzing websites themselves. But there are some tools straight out of the box within Majestic that are particularly useful in the audit page. In particular, the Pages tab within our Site Explorer. So when you type a URL into Majestic Site Explorer, one of the tabs is Pages. And the Pages tab will have a look at all the pages that are on your site or on your client's site and tell you all sorts of information about them. So instead of looking at all the citation flow and trust flow of the links to the site, you're now looking at the strongest pages on the website itself. We can also tell you any redirects. So if a page is getting redirects, we'll show you the redirect instantly at that point. If we're having trouble crawling into the website, we'll bring that up as well. And if our crawlers have problems being blocked by robots.txt, that'll be reported as well. So with a combination of Majestic and something like Deep Crawl or Screaming Frog, you can very quickly pick up some useful information that you can use in your site audits as well. Something else that is useful in site audits is that you can use Majestic to spot particularly dodgy anchor texts. So if you've got a website where you've overdone a particular keyword, it'll show up very obviously because you've been overdoing the anchor text links in the past. And so you can go into Majestic, have a look at the anchor text tab, start seeing all those links that are now penalizing you because you've got 1,000 links with the anchor text SEO. And also, I find once you've figured out how the link profile chart works, this is a pretty useful way of quickly seeing whether the website has got a good link profile or bad link profile. So I'm just going to spend a few seconds explaining how the link profile works. Every link into a website has its own citation flow and trust flow. So every link coming in has two scores between 0 and 100. And so what we do with this link profile chart is we map every link coming in and we put a dot on the citation flow, trust flow coordinates. So this is a 0 to 100 chart here and 0 to 100 chart on the vertical axis as well. And every dot represents a link coming in. And where you see dark spots, that's where there are multiple links with the same scores. So in this particular example, we have an especially spammy web profile. And that's because there's a lot of links that are relatively high citation flow, but especially low trust flow. And that's a danger sign because in a natural world, our flow metrics would suggest that citation flow and trust flow would scale to around about the same size algorithmically for a website or for links coming in. So if you have lots and lots of links with lots and lots of URLs where the links have high citation flow and low trust flow, that can be a danger sign. It may be that they're just mechanically created that way, but it's also highly likely that they were mechanically created that way. In other words, by an SEO at some point in the past. And if that's the case, then they're liable to get penalized now. And if we can see it, who would see it? Also, you can use in the site audits, bucket list is very, very good. We have the ability to start listing. Every time you go through lists of Majestic, people spend hours on Majestic every day. And quite often they don't have time to check websites. So clicking the bucket button allows you to package it to look at it later. So if you're looking for links, for example, then you can just go through lists and lists, and click the bucket, click the bucket, click the bucket, export the list and give it to somebody else to try and get the links. So I would recommend that you use the bucket list. There's also third-party Excel plugins as well. So if you are an Excel user, then there's two. I think the one that's really standing out for me now is SEO Tools for Excel. Unfortunately, you need to use Windows to make it work for you, but that allows you to put all of the Majestic commands straight into Excel. So look out for that. I think it's a free download. There's some helpful options as well. Although you will need a Majestic account to be able to pull in our commands. Okay, so you've audited the website, and if you're unlucky, you've realized that you've got a penguin phase. You've found out that you're going to have to fix some of your bad links. So here are the main tools for fixing bad links. The first thing that I would suggest if you've got a penguin problem is to collect data about all the links that you can. And one thing that you can do is export all of the links that Google shows you. So Google will show you, I think, up to 100,000 links, which conveniently is the maximum number you can upload to our URL submitter. So you can upload all 100,000 links into Majestic. And that will direct our crawlers and say, well, if we haven't crawled those URLs, can we go and crawl them in the next 24, 48 hours? That will quickly bring us up to speed and give you flow metrics for all of the URLs that we've not seen. So that's probably a good thing to do because it allows us to give you all the information out there. You can then start filtering in our reports. So we have advanced reports that allow you to go and take subsets of all the link profiles. And one of the cool things that you can do is you can filter your report based on a delta of the citation and trust flow. So if you just want those dodgy links and you think that a dodgy link is one where the citation flow is twice the amount of the trust flow, for example, then you could put a percentage in here that will allow you to get the low quality links. Or if you think the links are a particular anchor text, for example, or come from particular sources because you've got individual sources that you think are dubious, you can sort those and filter those. So do use the advanced analysis options in the advanced reports. And what you do is you go and get a report first, and then you go and analyze it. If you consistently want the same kind of metrics out of a report, you can change the default report settings in your settings. You can change your advanced filters in your report settings. But for most people, they'll get a report and then they'll go and change the settings to find exactly what they need. Another thing to do with this is a little neat trick for Penguin people that have got Penguin problems. We have a tool called Clique Hunter, and I'll talk about how it's used positively in a minute. But you can use it to try and unmask link networks. So if somebody has sold lots and lots of links in the past across many link networks, then if it's a fairly sophisticated network, then it's probably not put the same sites on all of the different websites in its network. But if Google is going to tell you two or three examples of where they think your site is being penalized, you can go and have a look at those pages and see what other websites were advertising and buying links on the same page as the ones that you're being penalized for. And you can put those, even though they may not be related to your business in any way, into Clique Hunter along with your website. And then what you do is you press the go button, and our system, Majestic, will bring back all of the websites that link to two or more of the websites that you entered. So if you think about it, if you put in 3 websites that are all on a penalized page, and it comes up with lots of other websites that are linking to the same 3 websites, then you're starting to uncover the link network that is getting you into trouble. So that can be a pretty cool use of Clique Hunter tool. Also, if you've got Penguin problems, there are a couple of tools out there that you can use to help you. Link Risk is one, and URL Profiler is another. On both of those tools, you can plug your Majestic account in, that will pull your data in, and then they can do some more investigation on those links and work things out a little further. So we've gone through a bit of a structure. You've prospected for business, you've pitched for business, you've audited, you've gone through Penguin, and now you can do, finally, the link prospecting, getting some good links to your website. So what tools does Majestic have for helping you find good links for your website? Well, you can use Majestic to search all day for links. And of course, the bucket list does make it easier for you to just put things into a pile for later. But we have just changed the defaults for Majestic so that before, if you were looking for looking at the top links to any website, then potentially Inside Explorer would show you lots and lots of links from site A to site B. Whereas now we're assuming that you want to see the top link. So we'll show you now unique links from unique websites, and we'll hide hidden or deleted links from the default view. You can unset it, but now you get a much cleaner view of any website's strongest links. So of course you go through, have a look at your competitors, see where they're getting their links from, and pulling out the strongest links, and seeing whether you can build relationships with those guys, and whether you can get reports, blog posts, engagement with those links that are already linking to you. Clique Hunter is also really valuable for this. So this is the positive use of our Clique Hunter tool. So what I would do with Clique Hunter tool is I would take the keyword that you're trying to look for on Google. I would take the top 10 websites that are coming back for that search result, maybe knock out things like Wikipedia, and put those 10 results into Clique. Clique Hunter will then bring back all of the websites that are linking to more than one of the people in that list. So here, for example, I've taken Majestic, Moz, Yahoo, and actually Majestic SEO, our previous name for our brand, and started showing where we've got links and our competitors haven't, for example. So I can start seeing where there are hubs of authority that I'm not currently engaged in. This is quite useful if you do it this way, because you're only putting in websites that are already ranking on Google, so they're not penalized by Google, and therefore the common link hubs of authority that you get back are also unlikely to be penalized by Google. I don't know if many of you know, but we're also a search engine as well. Now, search engine is an output, but if you start with a key phrase in our search box instead of a URL, then we do return results of websites that we think are the strongest ones to get links from within that category. Now, our search engines in alpha, we've got some fixes that we want to do, and it doesn't always come back with brilliant results. The two things that we very much want to fix is, firstly, we want to make it more regional. So at the moment, if you put in tennis, you'll get something coming back from Australia just as likely from America as from Russia. So we need to do some geo-targeting. But we also have a couple of bugs. Sometimes things go very, very odd. But usually you'll find some fairly good results coming back, and it gives you some very quick targets for people that you should approach that are going to be particularly effective around a given key phrase. So why use Majestic Search Explorer for link building? Well, it's a contextualized trust flow for a start. It's also useful as a search engine because we actually return more than 1,000 results. So Google only returns 1,000 results, for example. Whereas with our search engine, we can give you 1 million if you need, and that might blow your budget. But you can, if you're really, really clever, start looking at sites that are, maybe in the 1,000 to 2,000 range that are ranking for that are coming up the rankings and haven't yet popped into the search engine results on Google, but they're gaining link popularity around a certain phrase. And you could then go and start building relationships with them when they're small, and as they're building, your link on their small website starts to gain in popularity, gain in value over time. Our Search Explorer is also useful compared to using Google, for example, because there's no personalization in our results at all. So at least when you see our results, you're going to see a mathematically sensible set of data based purely on a link graph. So as I say, you can use our system to predict trending sites, and also you get instant data about websites that are particularly relevant for that. So lastly, when you are looking at websites, do have a look at the topical trust flow of any website and make sure that it's semantically quite close to the kind of business that you're in. We're seeing that more and more topics and categories are becoming more and more useful in trying to weed out the wheat from the chaff on the internet. So if you're starting to get links from websites that are semantically very distant from your business, then sooner or later, it's going to be seen that your links are random or irrelevant. Whereas if you get them semantically very close, then the chances are that the user and therefore the search engine are all going to combine in harmony, and your links are going to count much more. So finally, there's a lot of the tools all in one lot, but the final thing is reporting. Once you've got your customer, you've built links for them, you're going to want to be able to report and review what you've done. And one of the tools that comes out of the box for Majestic is the ability to be able to have a look at new and lost links on a daily basis. So if you go into the News tab, then it will show you what links we've seen in the last 90 days, and you can drag over up to 2 weeks of them at any one time and get a slice or dice, or click on any one day and see the actual links that we saw in any one given day. Now, bear in mind that the way that the internet works, it's quite often the case that you will get links on different parts of the website, and the URLs will change quite quickly. A good example of this is WordPress. If somebody is linking to you from a WordPress site, then on day one, you'll pick up a link from the homepage when they've suddenly announced or linked to you from their homepage. But as they write more stories, your link disappears from the homepage, but it still stays on an internal page within the blog. So we'll then count that as two different links, and they'll appear on two different crawls. So it may be that they're not picked up at exactly the same time. But still, you can get a pretty good idea of whether the link count is growing or shrinking. I also mentioned towards the start that it's really useful to get tracking reports, and I would suggest that you do, and also make a good use of the folder options within your report section. So if you're making lots of reports, then do put them into sensible folders so you can see competitors for each of your clients next to each other, so that you don't have to spend half your time running around and seeing reports that you thought you'd lost or never created in the first place. That's pretty much it. What's in a link? A lot more. There's content, relevance, intent, influence, timeliness, meaning, power, context, and passion. There's a lot of things that go into a link, and a lot of them are stuff that if a search engine or a human being could analyze, they probably would. So I hope that this has shown you some of the tools that we use, that we have to allow you to pull out some of these meanings, some of these thoughts from the Majestic system. And with that, if there are any questions, most of them seem to be in Russian, which I can't answer. But are there any questions out there? And thank you very much for taking the time to listen to the presentation. Andrew, I'm glad you liked that idea, although I don't know which one you were liking. There we go. Let me go and have a quick look up here. There are some questions that would appear. Okay, can I speak louder? And then most of you listened. So, right, if you have got any questions, at the bottom of the screen there should be a write a message option, and let us know any questions you've got. Right, okay. Thank you for your webinar. It was really good. Oh, well, that's very nice of you to say so. Thank you. Who is the world's biggest link analysis engine, Ahrefs or Majestic? Well, that was planted, wasn't it? So here's the thing. We are. I do believe that we are. I think that there's some interesting analysis, and it's not always possible to compare apples and oranges. For example, if you compare the base numbers between Majestic and Ahrefs, you go to their homepage and our homepage, and you put in numbers.